Cornelius the Commodore Vanderbilt was one of the early titans in American industrialization. During the Gilded Age, he would focus on transportation of goods. He started with the ferry system and eventually moved on to the railroad system. Let's look at his rise and fall during his rule of industrializing America. Cornelius Vanderbilt was born poor and had minimal education. He started his career in the shipping industry, working his way up. He owned a steamboat ferry company called Gibbons. Eventually, he sold all of his ferries and invested all of that money into the railroad system. By investing all of this money into the railroad system, Cornelius Vanderbilt almost single-handedly boomed America's infrastructure. Cornelius Vanderbilt created an empire in the railroad industry. His rise in power was quite glorious. He owned the only railroads into central Manhattan. By having this advantage, he was able to take all of his competitors out of business. Following taking his competitors out of businesses, he bought all of their companies and essentially owned most of the railroad system in America. Cornelius Vanderbilt's strategy of buying out his competitors' stocks one day backfired when he was outsmarted by two businessmen named Jay Gould and James Fisk. During this time, there's very little regulation in the stock market. What Gould and Fisk did was water down their stock. What this meant was that as Vanderbilt bought more shares in Gould and Fisk's company, they would create more stocks, which would decrease the value of each share. What's interesting is if you compare that to today's stock market. Today's stock market has very different rules. Companies are required to tell shareholders anytime they're creating new stock. Eventually, being the powerhouse he was, Cornelius Vanderbilt bounced back from this catastrophic event. He would one day be tested again by not someone in the railroad industry, but someone in the oil industry named Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller started out poor just like Cornelius Vanderbilt. He worked several jobs when eventually the oil business began booming. He started a company which focused on oil refinery. Rockefeller partnered with Cornelius Vanderbilt and other railroad companies to transport his oil to different refineries. Eventually, Cornelius Vanderbilt got tired of working with Rockefeller and raised the rates to ship his oil. Rockefeller took this personally and wanted to seek revenge on Vanderbilt and the other railroad companies. They did massive pipelines throughout the nation in order to transport his oil without the use of railroad companies. He almost owned the whole process to oil refinery, a system called vertical integration. This meant for Rockefeller is that he didn't have to pay for transportation of his oil. By being able to transport it in his own pipeline, he saved costs and eventually actually ran Vanderbilt out of business. Following this, however, Vanderbilt died. Although it was a sad end to their relationship, Rockefeller could have never made it without the help of Vanderbilt. Rockefeller's company struggled hard at the beginning. He was actually saved by Vanderbilt when Vanderbilt offered to transport oil to his refineries. The reason Vanderbilt helped Rockefeller out by shipping his oil was because Vanderbilt himself was struggling. By helping Rockefeller, he was able to maintain cargo on his trains. Vanderbilt and Rockefeller both had interesting ways they contributed to industrialization in America. What's interesting is that Rockefeller's energy source, gasoline, kind of made railroads obsolete. Essentially, Rockefeller not only drove Vanderbilt out of business in the market industry, but also hypothetically as well. In today's society, we don't very much use railroads anymore. However, everybody uses gasoline nowadays. Rockefeller still has companies that stemmed from his original company today. Companies such as Chevron or ExxonMobil stem from Rockefeller's original company. It is interesting to see how two people, let alone one person, contributed so much to industrialization in America. Without these two powerhouses, who knows where our economy and our infrastructure would be today.